Hello?
Councillors, please mute your microphones. Now, please, councillors. Councillor Erickson Darker, please mute your microphone.
Just letting in your okay. Sorry.
Morning, everyone. Mic test for me, please.
Mic is on. I can hear you loud and clear.
Welcome, speaker, on this beautiful Monday morning.
Thank you, and to yourself. Councillors, please do not write in the chat box your presence. We will do roll call once the meeting is started. And if you do, it disrupts the meeting. Thanks.
Mostly the channel and I was that
Sorry.
Good morning, councillors. My time is now 10 o'clock. I'd like to wish everyone a welcome to our special council meeting on this 28th of March 2022. And if I may ask Councillor Jantjies to open for us in prayer, I'd appreciate it, please.
Good morning, colleagues and speaker. Can you please bow our heads and ask God's grace? Lord Jesus Christ, we thank you for this wonderful day and the weekend which has passed. Clear our minds so that we can be mindful of our responsibilities and tasks as leaders to take the rightful decisions, and also that we can care for what we say and what we do, so that we can take responsible decisions in council for our communities. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you very much, Councillor. With that, I'd like to once again say welcome to everybody. We are going to go straight into the duties of the day. And I'd like to start off with item 1.2, applications for leave. Are there any applications for leave? Amen.
Speaker, yes, thank you very much. Applications have been received from Councillor Eso, Councillor Gultig, Alderman Gericka, Councillor Kleinans, Councillor Buys, Councillor Greef, and Councillor Heisa. I understand I received a WhatsApp from Milani regarding Councillor Hector not attending today. I never saw a leave form though. That is what I have. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I've also not received any leave form. So with that, we'll proceed. I'm going to continue with item 2, disclosure of interest of councillors. Councillor Camille, your hand is up for some reason. Can you please ask your question?
Thank you, Speaker. Good morning, everyone. Can you just verify the number of the councillors that have applied for the leave? Just a number, please.
I think I counted as 8. Am I correct, Emin?
Speaker, it is 8, which includes Councillor Hector's WhatsApp, but it is 7 if we look at the leave forms. Thank you.
Thank you. So officially, there are 7 councillors on leave today that have had leave signed off. Thank you. Item 2 is the disclosure of interest by councillors. Item 5 of the Code of Conduct for councillors and disclosure of benefits by municipal staff members. Item 5 of the Code of Conduct for municipal staff members. Are there any items to declare? Disclose? No, none. Matters at the discretion. Sorry, your hand is up.
Sorry, Speaker. Yes, for the confidential item, Mr. James, Mr. Erasmus, and myself have an interest in the confidential item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So noted. I would therefore like to move on to matters of the discretion of the Speaker. I have no matters at this stage. I'd like to continue with the business of the day, and I'd like to move on to item 4, reports to Council. The first item on the agenda is 4.1, tabling of the draft reviewed Integrated Development Plan, IDP, and the first to bring that in would be...
Sorry, Speaker.
Yes.
Are we not doing a roll call?
My apologies. I humbly apologize. My head is all over the place this morning. It's been quite a rough morning already. Mr. Pollis, would you go ahead with the roll call? Is Mr. Pollis not available?
Miss Simon, maybe?
Ms. Simon, will you go ahead with the roll call?
Adams?
Sorry, was that for me?
America,
Present. Thank you, Speaker.
Councillor Barnett,
Good morning, Present Speaker.
Councillor Brown,
Present. Morning, Speaker.
Councillor Clark,
Good morning, Present.
Councillor Cronje,
Good morning, Present.
Councillor
I-
Dutton,
Councillor Zulu present. Speaker, thank you.
Councillor Esso, Councillor Fichland,
Present, good morning.
Councillor Fichland RG, Councillor Fichland RG, Councillor Fry,
Councillor Fry, present, good morning.
Councillor Gom,
Present, but I'm having a problem with my network. I can't log in for the meeting. I've tried to speak to the IT guys, but there is no response for now.
Councillor Hani,
Good morning, President Speaker.
Councillor Hill,
Present, Speaker.
Councillor Janjis,
Present, Honorable Speaker.
Councillor Jay, Councillor Jay, Councillor Johnson,
Good morning, present.
Councillor Kleinans, Councillor Kleinans,
Councillor Kleinans submitted an apology.
Elder Lady Kretzinger,
Good morning, Present.
Councillor Kruger,
Morning, present.
Councillor Lento,
Mornings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm present.
Alose,
Good morning. Councillor Rosa, present.
Councillor Low, NM, Councillor Low, NM, Councillor Low, RMI, Councillor Low, RMI, Councillor Manxele,
Good morning, everyone present.
Councillor Mbete,
Morning, Speaker. Morning, everyone. I'm present.
Councillor Mdaka, ET, Councillor Mdaka,
Councillor
F,
Mdaka present, yes. I'm just trying to let this laptop right.
Kuli, Councillor
Good day,
Kuli,
Speaker. I'm present.
Councillor Ndile,
Dibizeni, I didn't hear my name.
Councillor Manile,
Good morning, everyone present.
Councillor Mtaka. FN is present. FN Mtaka is present.
Councillor Netland,
Present. Morning.
Councillor Niehaus,
Morning, present.
Councillor Ntondini,
Present, Moses.
Alderman Petrus,
Good morning, colleagues. Present.
Councillor Katana,
Good morning, colleagues. Councillor Katana present.
Councillor Kampi,
Morning, everyone present.
Councillor Rolfse,
Good morning, everyone. Present.
Councillor Surfos, Councillor Seyfus, Councillor Septu, Councillor Septu, Councillor Simmers,
Good morning, present.
Councillor Smart,
Good morning, colleagues. Present.
Councillor Snyman,
Present.
Councillor Titus, Councillor Titus, Councillor Toto,
Molo sisi ndikhona. Niyavakala apha kuthi nje benithetha apha kuthi. So kanilumfundozeni nami kulo xaba.
Councillor Van der Kerk,
Good morning, colleagues. Present.
Councillor Alderman van Wyk,
Present, Speaker.
Alderman van Wyk,
He did indicate his presence.
Present, Speaker.
Councillor Von Brandes,
Present, thank you.
Councillor Wessels,
Present.
and Councillor Von Wyk.
That was Councillor Windwy.
Good morning, Present Speaker.
Thank you very much. Councillor Suffers, I see your hand up. I presume you're now present. Thank you. You can put your hand down. Councillor Suffers, thank you. Councillors, Council, we're going to move on. Thank you very much for the attendance register. And as I said earlier, the first item on the agenda is 4.1, tabling of the draft reviewed 2022-2023 Integrated Development Plan. And to bring this item in, we'll have Alderman Leon van Wyk. Thank you.
Good morning, Speaker. Thank you. Yes, this item that we have before us today is gives us the opportunity to consider and to note the draft review 2022-2023 Integrated Development Plan, which will then serve as the basis for public participation during the coming months, April and May 2022, and then also for Council to note the revised IDP, MSDF and budget process plan. So as Council will recall, with our inauguration only in November, the normal requirement is for a new IDP to be tabled in a new term, but due to the shortened timeframes, Council then resolved on the 25th of February 2022, just as other councils did throughout the country, to adopt its predecessor's IDP. So therefore, in adopting the predecessor IDP, we need to undertake a review process, and that then gets set out in the recommendation that is before us on how we're going to deal with that process. And I would like, in tabling this IDP, draft IDP, I would just like to remind councillors and to request them to study this document and to see what additional comments can be provided. And the whole aspect of ward-based planning then commences from page 157 within the attached document. So I accordingly table the IDP. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Alderman van Wyk. Noted. The first person to talk on this item is Councillor Wessels.
Hi, thank you, Speaker. Yes, as per the Mayor, this is to provide Council an opportunity to consider and note the draft reviewed 22-23 Integrated Development Plan, which will serve as the basis for the public participation during April and May 2022. Also for Council to note the revised IDP, MSDF and budget process plan. Speaker, I would also just like Council and the public to take notice of my absolute dismay that certain political parties take leave during an item where the needs of the very communities that we vote for are being discussed and implemented. One would really need to ponder the reasoning for such. Due to the local elections happening in November 2021, no public participation process was embarked upon in October and November, and this will now take place during April and May 2022. The overall objectives for these engagements are to provide feedback on the process, on the progress made with respect to existing projects and share information on future projects. And secondly, to afford communities and ward committees an opportunity to review the IDP ward priorities and to comment where necessary. A workshop was held with the councillors in this regard. The strategic thrust of George Municipality is to be a sustainable city for the future, and I would just like to outline our 5 strategic goals: to develop and grow George, to be a safe, clean and green city, to render affordable services, public participant partnership, and good governance and human capital. On page 161 of the document, councillors can find the ward-based needs per ward that has been linked to each of the strategic objectives as set out earlier. I would like to request councillors and the public at large to continue to play an active role in the composition of this in order to make sure that we speak to the very needs of all the citizens of George. In the next item, I'll give more detail on how the IDP relates to the municipal budget. I would just like to propose the recommendation. It's A to E, and that can be found on page 9 of the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wessels. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Lento. You have 2 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Speaker. The community expect to receive the service delivery that is in good standard, like in the suburb. We as the ANC, we accept this ITP as long to speak to our community. We have a challenge for the community halls in our areas like Timberlake, Joma, Rosemore, Packerstop. Each and every time they've analyzed these community halls. Why the George Municipality can't hire the security to take care of our community halls. We also have a challenge of the informal settlement that need to be serviced for the electricity. The municipality is losing lots of money. I think to save this wasteful money, if the municipality can install the box of the electricity to all of these informal settlement, because those people, they need to be serviced. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Subtu. You have 1 minute. Councillor Subtu. Councillor Subtu. I'm going to move on. Thank you. The next party to speak is the EFF, Councillor Nkampi. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, Speaker. We note all the recommendation with the EFF, but I think also it is highly time that we shift the focus now and focus mainly on all the areas in Timberlake, especially the informal settlements. It's high time that now most of the planning that focuses on our side and other areas in George that are very needing this planning to be integrated on them, because it's highly time that the municipality sees that these people need our services, because really it's unfair that the budget, whenever it comes out, you'll find out most of the money goes to those suburbs and to those proper areas that don't need anything. Everything is proper, but to us, it's always the budget always is very so minimum that it ends up not even finishing the roads, not even finishing the properties and the structures that are being done here in our area. So please, and also one that is highlighted, that really our structures are being made, like the walls are made there, but there's no proper security. That needs to be looked into, really. And also the challenges that are being highlighted in our wards. I think it's high time that those challenges are being overcome and are being achieved. There's no need to state that we have a challenge of
Wrap up, please, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. But I would love to say that it's high time that the municipality of George being fair to us as the Timberlake. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last person to speak on this item is Councillor Adams. You have 1 minute.
Speaker baie dankie. Thank you very much. It's sad that some of our political parties today have chosen not to be present in this very important meeting, because this is about our communities in George, every part of our community in George, not only Denneoord or Rooirivier Rift. It's about Timberlake, it's about Lavaikamp, it's about all of our communities. And this IDP does speak to all our communities. And I don't know how councillors can come and sit and don't read the IDP and then want to make uneducated accusations. Speaker, I second this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That concludes that item. The next item on the agenda is item 4.2, which is the tabling of the multi-year draft budget for 2022-23 to 2024-25 by the Mayor. Bringing it in is the Alderman van Wyk. You can go ahead, Alderman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, Speaker, Alderman, Deputy Mayor, Chief Whip, councillors, acting municipal manager, directors, officials, members of the media, and members of the public. As has already been echoed earlier by earlier speakers, I also want to express my dismay at the absence of numerous councillors at council meeting today. 2 years ago, we sat with similar problems where councillors did not perform their statutory requirements to attend council meetings. And the municipality then proceeded to the High Court to obtain an order to ensure that councillors do the work that they are appointed for. So it is of concern that we once again have a repetition where certain councillors are not doing the work on behalf of their communities, and they therefore are absolutely remiss in their duties. I am today tabling the multi-year draft capital and operating budget for 2022-23 through to 24-25 in terms of Section 16.2 and 17.3 of the Municipal Finance Management Act, Act 56 of 2003. In tabling this budget, it needs to be credible in terms of activities consistent with the IDP, given the financial constraints, and which is then what is achievable in terms of service delivery and performance targets, that our revenue and expenditure projections then are consistent with past performance, which would not jeopardize the financial viability of the municipality. We have accordingly taken into account the state of the South African economy, as well as that of the region and of George, the stage of post-COVID-19 recovery and its impact on our community. At the same time, we have to address our aging infrastructure and the requirements to increase the treatment capacities for the supply of water and for wastewater. We are constantly faced with the risks of ongoing problems with Eskom's operations and constant disruption in the supply of electricity to households and businesses. We've been forced to invest in purchasing standby generators for various sewer pump stations to mitigate the impact of load shedding. The rainstorm and flooding of 22 November 2021 resulted in substantial damage to infrastructure, with claims running into hundreds of millions of rands being made for disaster relief. In the meantime, immediate repairs had to be undertaken, with further funding made available during the adjustments budget. In this budget, we will again need to continue to spend on repairs in anticipation that disaster relief funding will materialize in the future. We strive to maintain a high standard of service delivery in George. Over the past 5 years, we've experienced pressures on the capacity of our wastewater treatment works, while recognizing the need to increase the capacity of the water treatment works as well. In addition, we're experiencing in-migration of citizens who are settling in George. Towards the end of 2021, we were informed that George was awarded a BFI, that is a Budget Facility for Infrastructure, grant of almost 1.2 billion to upgrade our water infrastructure. Councillor Wessels will possibly add some further briefing on this in his speech later on. The receipt of this grant has necessitated an entire review of our capital budget over the next 5 years to reassess the municipality's capacity to spend and the urgent needs to address the aging infrastructure within our water, sewage, electricity, roads, and stormwater networks. It is a given that well-maintained infrastructure and a high standard of reliable services being delivered is the key driver to attract investment to a municipality. It is ultimately our objective that investment will stimulate economic activity, bringing an increase in employment levels, that is, jobs. It is therefore imperative that we focus on the delivery of our core services. In practical terms, for municipalities of our size to deliver the core services, including having a capable, productive administration that is highly effective in providing town planning, economic development, and tourism services, ensuring safe and clean environments, it needs to be spending somewhere between 95% and 97% on this basket of services. George is now on the threshold of the transition of shifting into its role of becoming a significant intermediate city. As our requirement to spend more on capital budgets increases, our tariff structures also need to make allowance for increased maintenance, funding for repayments of long-term loans to fund these acquisitions of further assets, and the generation of internal funding. The analysis of our budgetary needs has brought realization that we need to improve our data analysis and billing systems to ensure that our consumers are billed correctly and are contributing to the revenue according to tariff policies. We need to sharpen our credit control and our debt collection process. We are increasingly having to invest more in technology so that decisions are driven by data-based evidence. We are accordingly spending more to upgrade our meters and telemetry, expanding our CCTV cameras to ensure that our citizens live in safer environments. The incidents of load shedding caused by the unreliability of Eskom's electricity supply are causing damage to our infrastructure, as we've seen with our water network and sewage spillages. In this draft budget, we've allocated 170 million rand towards the installation of a 10 megawatt solar PV plant with the objective that this project will assist in relieving George from stage 1 and later stage 2 of load shedding. It is aimed to have the first 1 megawatt of this project in operation by June 2023 and the balance in the year thereafter. In addition, we will be installing solar PV plants to generate 1.35 megawatt, a total of 1.3 megawatt at our facilities in 22-23 at a project cost of 27.3 million, and a further 1.25 megawatt at a cost of 23.5 million in the 2 years thereafter. The projects have also commenced to provide uninterrupted power supply to traffic lights and energy saving to street lights. A request for proposals for independent power producers was also issued that closed in January 22. Some of the proposals, if implemented, will no doubt assist in reducing our reliance on Eskom. Ideally, we need baseload energy production projects that can provide electricity on a 24-hour basis. Storage capacity, once cost-effective, will also enable extending the day beyond the sunlight hours. It is planned to fund our investment by utilizing loan facilities over approximately 5 years that will pay off the plant acquired. The municipality utilizes roughly 8% of its bulk purchases for own use, and once operational, these new projects, then the funds spent on monthly purchases will instead simply be transferred to the loan repayments on the loans for the new acquisitions. After repaying the 5-year loan, the 50 to 60 million rand per annum can then be utilized for other essential services. Now turning to the capital budget. Over the 3-year MTREF, we are budgeting to spend 2.5 billion rand on capital expenditure, with 784 million to be spent in the 22-23 financial year. Civil engineering services will receive 543 million of this amount. At streets and stormwater, we plan to spend 150 million, with 33 million going on Egyptian roads rehabilitation, 28 million in Tembeletu on streets and stormwater. In Pakosop, 15 million rand will be similarly spent. 20 million rand will be spent on repairs to slip failure, mainly on the Roy Dry Road in Heralds Bay. 33 million will be spent on resealing, rebuilding and upgrading roads elsewhere in George, including Harlem, with 10 million rand being spent on stormwater upgrades, including in George South. On water networks, we will be spending 56 million and 198 million rand at water purification. 29 million rand will be spent on new bulk and smart meters, telemetry and valves, with 17 million being spent on network rehabilitation, including in Uniondale. 156 million rand will be spent at the extension to the waterworks, and 7 million on the generator at the Garden Route Dam pump station. 35 million rand will be spent on the Schaapkop and Meal pump station upgrades, with another 97 million rand earmarked in the outer years, with 10 million to be spent on the Tembeletu pump station number 6, with a further 37 million rand in the outer years. You will note the extent and the size of these investments to make sure that these sewer pump stations operate effectively. At sewer treatment works, 52 million rand will be spent in 22-23, with 10 million of that being spent on the 10 megaliter addition at the Outeniqua works and 17 million rand at the Flying works. This spending on the Outeniqua wastewater treatment works will conclude this upgrading project by March next year. At the Outeniqua wastewater treatment works, 12.5 million rand needs to be spent on flood damage repairs for a donga that was created. And I think this is an alarming amount of money that needs to be spent to repair flood damage that was created there. At electrotechnical services, 151 million rand will be spent in the coming year. 33 million rand of the INAP grant needs to be spent this year on the Tembeletu Ballots Bay 6611 kV substation. I would like to urge the Tembeletu councillors to emphasize the urgency of getting this project progressed. We've already had delays, and it is now time that we get this project underway. 15 million will be spent on the new Glenwood 20 MVA transformer. 5.6 million rand will be spent on reticulation schemes in informal areas, and 8.7 million rand on reticulation, the metro grounds, with 4.1 million rand being spent on the UISP formal area's underground connection. As mentioned, we will be embarking on a 10 megawatt renewable energy project with 170 million earmarked over 3 years, with a plan to have the 1 million already installed by June next year. At community services, we will be allocating 36.6 million rand, with 4 million allocated to the building of a composting plant. 2 refuse truck compactors will be acquired at 3.6 million rand and a bulldozer for 4 million rand. Protection services will receive 36.8 million, with 11.3 million rand allocated to expand our CCTV camera network. 17 million rand will be allocated to the remaining directorates. In turning to the operating budget, we need to look at the following. The determination of tariff increases is driven to a large extent by the electricity bulk purchase increases approved by NERSA of 9.61% and salary increases of 4.9% approved by the Bargaining Council for Municipal Employees. These 2 items are key drivers to the percentage of increase that takes place under the expenditure category. The increased emphasis that we are placing on infrastructure renewal and expansion will also require adjustments to tariffs in excess of the generally regarded 3 to 6% inflation band. It is therefore proposed to increase electricity tariffs by 8%, property rates by 8%, water by 10%, sanitation by 9%, and refuse also by 9%. Other service tariffs will generally increase by 6%, although each individual tariff has been reassessed to become more cost reflective, as many of the present tariffs are out of line in relation to the costs for many of the services that we are undertaking. The budgeted revenue from services and rates for 22-23 is 1,775 million rand compared to 1,622 million rand for 21-22. So this is the key part of the own generated revenue that we undertake. If the revenue generated from electricity is then excluded, 812 million rand flows from the other sources, in other words, your water, your sanitation, your refuse, your property rates, as compared to 747 million rand in 21-22. Therefore, every increase of 1% to that tariff only yields 8%, and 8% is then relatively little to undertake the improvements to services that are necessary. And this naturally makes it very difficult to keep tariffs at a lower level of increase. Total revenue is budgeted to increase to 3,242 million rand, while budgeted expenditure is set at 2,871 million rand as compared to the 2021 budgeted revenue figures of 2,802 million rand and expenditure of 2,626. So we will note that there are fairly considerable increases, and part of these increases are accounting related entries that now need to be brought into the budget. The budget expenditure on bulk purchases of electricity is 667 million rand for the coming year and 731 million for employee-related costs. New basis for electricity tariffs. It is proposed that the basis of electricity tariffs be changed from a unit charge per kilowatt hour to a fixed charge and a lower per kilowatt hour charge. George is one of the last municipalities to still levy the kilowatt hour charges. All our surrounding municipalities in the Western Cape have already made the transition. We've done the cost of supply study required by NERSA, but have not yet implemented these changes for the last few years. With the continuous increases in Eskom tariffs, the use of renewables has become more affordable. As a result, businesses and private consumers have started to migrate to renewables, resulting in a loss of good customers and revenue to municipalities, including George. It is critical that the electricity infrastructure be maintained. George's electricity network has a value exceeding 2 billion rand. It is therefore important that this network be maintained. This is the reason for the fixed charge. Our planned move to the two-part basis of charging will also involve the encouragement to shift the load. This entails consumers focusing to consciously save amperage usage through not overloading the electricity system. Simultaneous usage of geysers, ovens, tumble dryers, and hair dryers increases the amp load. The tariff charges of Eskom on municipalities are based on the highest maximum usage at peak times. If we can reduce these maximum charges, the prices paid to Eskom will decline. In the shift to fixed charges, domestic consumers will be levied at 40 amperes and be charged per ampere. If they wish to reduce their amperes to 20 or increase them to 60, this will result in either cheaper or further higher charges. In this way, all consumers can contribute to lower MVA charges, in other words, megavolt amp charges from Eskom, making it easier to avoid load shedding stages in future. Indigent users and those consumers using up to 400 kilowatt hours per month will remain on a per kilowatt hour charge as at present using 20 amps. If you use above 400 kilowatt hours per month as a domestic consumer, charges will shift to a basic charge of 75 Rand 19 cents per month, 4 Rand 54 per amp, in other words 181 Rand 60 per month on 40 amps, and an energy charge of 210.04 cents per kilowatt hour. In the example of using a household consuming 600 kilowatt hours per month, my estimate is that the increase will actually equate to 7% as opposed to the overall 8% in the proposals being tabled. The exercise that's been undertaken in moving to this basis of charging has been done to achieve revenue neutrality. An intensive campaign will be undertaken to explain the new tariffs to all our consumers in the next few weeks. With regard to the water tariffs, it is worth noting that consumers who use higher quantities of water will be paying higher charges. Consumers are therefore encouraged to ensure better management of both their electricity and their water usage. In respect of sewerage tariffs for guest houses, it has been decided to abandon levies based on the number of water closets in favor of kiloliter water usage above a threshold. This is similar to tariff structures used in other municipalities. Examples of sample accounts for different categories of households, including indigents and the free basic tariffs, are included in the item being tabled today. I wish to note that over the weekend, some small discrepancies were noted in the documents placed before Council today from those that were determined or modelled in the days prior to the documents being sent to councillors. The corrected versions are accordingly also being tabled and will be initialed as such. It needs to be noted that this is a draft budget, and accordingly all tariffs proposed are drafts and subject to comment, with the final budget to be approved by the end of May 2022. Councillor Wessels will provide some additional insights and inputs. As can be seen from this draft budget, some bold decisions have to be taken to place George on a path towards infrastructure renewal and growth in capacities of wastewater, and water, becoming energy secure, improving safety, in being green and clean. We are actively working to grow the revenue base through correct billing and collections. The budgeted program over the next 3 years will, we trust, increase economic activity, grow jobs, and position George as a significant magnet intermediate city within South Africa. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Alderman van Wyk. The first person to speak on this item is Councillor Wessels. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the Mayor for the thorough tabling of the budget. Speaker, firstly, let me start off maybe with the BFI, or the Budget Facility for Infrastructure, where George received just under 1.2 billion rand for the upgrading of infrastructure. These BFI allocations have been gazetted, and George, for the 22-23 financial year, will receive just over 240 million. The year thereafter, so 23-24, 510 million, and the year thereafter, so 24-25, just over 274 million. Councillors should take note that an application was submitted, and based on that, George was one of 17 institutions that actually received this grant. So again, I would just like to thank the amazing work by the administration. The funds, however, can only be used on the projects as per the application. Some of these projects include the new Thembaletu Reservoir and Pump Station on the east side, a new Thembaletu Reservoir and Pump Station on the west side, a new Packelsdorp Reservoir Tower and Pump Station on the east side, a new Packelsdorp Reservoir on the west side. It also includes a 20 megaliter waste treatment sludge works, as well as refurbishment of Meal, Skarkop, Eden, the various pump stations. So again, I would just like to the facility for the grant. The BFI was introduced in 2016 and can only be used for infrastructure upgrades. I would then maybe just like to go further and maybe align some of the budgetary provisions to some of earlier statements by councillors as well as to the IDP. So strategic objective 1 was to develop and grow George. So over the 3 years budget cycle, the BFI will be implemented. Procurement plan speaks directly to the upgrade of this infrastructure, where the 1.2 billion rand will be invested into the future for George. In Electrotech, we are spending considerable funds into renewable energy sources that will ensure George remain the destination of choice and be less reliant on Eskom. 33 million has therefore been allocated to the Thembaletu Ballots View substation. 8.9 million rand has been allocated towards the Metro Ground, with a 170 million rand renewable project, the solar plant, 170 million being allocated to that over the following 3 years. Over 85% of this capital budget is being spent within civil and elect, ensuring the opportunity for George to actually grow. Some of these additional projects is 150 million that will be spent on streets and stormwaters. The specific streets is also mentioned within the item, and take note of one of the previous speakers. There is a couple of Thembaletu streets, etc., that will be done there. 1 million for the next year and 5 million for over the 3 years is for access to basic services in the informal settlements. And it also provides provision of services for a further 10 million rand. For the residents of Buckelsdorp, exciting that 1 million rand has been allocated for the SMME trading hub. For Safe, Clean and Green, Strategic Objective 2, budgetary allocation was made for a new composting plant to the value of 3.7 million. Vehicles to assist community services has been budgeted for to curb illegal dumping. That's for bulldozers to plus minus the value of 4 million rand. Land invasion, law enforcement and traffic is getting substantial budgetary provision for vehicles and equipment. The fire brigade is also expanding their fleet in order to respond quicker and more effective where needed. Agree with the previous councillors that safeguarding of our municipal assets are highly prioritized, or must be highly prioritized. And they will find that 9.95 million rand has been budgeted over the 3 years for various fencing projects for our assets. Also, they spoke about community halls, so I would like to take them to the Thembaleti Zone 9 Community Hall, where 600,000 is provided for, as well as the Conville Community Hall. Some of the other community halls are sitting in the outer years. A safe city is of high importance, so we've got 4.5 million rand for cameras and 6.4 million for fiber installations for those cameras to serve into the control room. Smart meters will ensure that we be able to build the necessary revenue. So 23 million is being budgeted for that. In terms of sport, Buckelsdorp Pavilion is getting 1 million rand. Thembaleti Sports Grounds is getting 1.2 million rand. 700,000 is in the budgeted for netball infrastructure in George, with a swimming pool in Conville getting 700,000 as well for certain upgrades to make for a more pleasant experience for all of our residents. Speaker, there's a saying, failing to plan is planning to fail. This is the George Council planning to become a sustainable city for all, on the route to becoming the lead destination or the leading town in George. I would just like to propose the recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wessels. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Lento. You have 2 minutes. Sorry, before we continue, Councillor Lento. Councillor Kampi, your hand is up. Sorry.
Thank you, Speaker. No, Speaker, I would just like to highlight what Councillor Adams just said about people saying uneducational comments. Is that allowed in this meeting to call people uneducational or uneducated? Is it that allowed?
Sorry, I don't quite understand what you're saying.
Councillor Adams, in his comment or in his statement, he called out people like us and other countries.
No, he didn't specify anybody, Councillor.
No, it's only us who've just spoken before he spoke. Yet he called some people are making uneducated comments. What is that? What is being uneducated when you are trying to say your input?
Councillor, I'm going to continue.
It's fine to defend him, but he said that.
I'm not defending anybody, Councillor.
Only us who've spoken.
Thank you very much.
We were the first speakers. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor. Noted. Thank you. Councillors, I'm going to continue with the next speaker. These are new hands. Councillor Klumpik, can you please put your hand down? Councillor Lento, you have 2 minutes. Councillor Smart, is it in regard to the Councillor Wessels?
No, Speaker, it is not the first comment Councillor Adams was making. So then we will then go the disciplinary route to charge him then directly. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lento, you have 2 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's someone's talking at the back.
Councillor Camille. I have not acknowledged your hand. We've moved on from that. Your colleague has made a remark which I've taken note of. We are now on item 4.2, and I'm not moving back. I'm moving forward. Councillor Lenton has 2 minutes. And
Can I start to talk now, Speaker?
yes, you may start to talk now, Councillor Lenton.
Good day, Mr. Mayor and Speaker. Budget. We as the ANC will accept this multi-year draft budget for 2022-23. But Mr. Mayor, we have a challenge of the people who were in crisis of floods from last year in October to November. Those people, they didn't get help. Mr. Mayor, can you try to resolve this matter of these gamblers, please? Because the winter and floods is near the corner. So can you talk to the person who is in charge for those flood crises? We have a challenge also for those RDP houses. Some of them were burned down long time ago. But until now, those houses were not fixed. Like those houses in Tembalete in zone 6. The old woman plus minus 76-year-old, her house was burned down by someone who is not residing at that house. That woman needs your assistance, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Mayor. Lastly, Mr. Mayor, we have the challenge with those old houses in Ward 9, Zone 4. That place is residing the old people called Emangana. All those houses, they have cracks inside. If you are inside, you can see outside. And those people, they are the pensioners. And also the roof and the asbestos. Can you change those asbestos and the roof, please? I thank you, Mr. Mayor and Speaker.
Thank you very much. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Sabtu. Councillor Sabtu. Councillors, please put your microphones off. Thank you. I'm going to move on. There's no response from Councillor Sabtu. The last person to speak on this item is Councillor Fichland. Councillor R. Fichland, you have 1 minute. Chief Whip, your hand is up.
Chairperson, if Councillor Fichland is unable to unmute himself, I will continue on his behalf.
Continue.
Chairperson, thank you. I would just like to congratulate the Mayor, the MM and the teams for putting together this draft budget proposal, and I would like to second the recommendation as carried in by my colleague, Councillor Dirk Wessels. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Camilla, your hand is up.
Speaker, point of clarity, I just want to know, is it allowed that when a person is struggling with technical problems, of which he was on the speaker's list, and then someone must replace or take a part on his behalf? Because if I can recall, last week Friday, some of the parties were not allowed to have such. I just need the clarity on that one.
Councillor, the difference being that the person in question is in council, he is present at the meeting, and it must be seconded. Therefore, it is a question of that if he didn't have he can't unmute his mic, he is present. You're welcome to look on the presence list, and he cannot unmute. The item must be seconded. I therefore then have given you my answer. Thank you. And so can we please move on? The next item on this agenda is item 4.3, the adoption of the Oversight report on the 2020-2021 annual report. And The first person to speak on this item is Councillor Wessels. Councillor Wessels, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I won't take up all the minutes. This item is to recommend that Council should adopt the Oversight report on the 2021 annual report from the Municipal Public Accounts Committee, or IMPACT, as prescribed by Section 129 of the Local Government Municipal Finance Management Act, number 56 of 2003, also known as the MFMA. The table on page 359 details the major steps that have been taken since the 31st of January 2022 to the current date relating to the consideration and evaluation of the 2021 annual report. After considering and evaluating this report, the representations thereon, the IMPACT recommended that the Oversight report on the 2021 annual report as Annexure A to this agenda be adopted, and that the 2021 annual report be approved without reservations. I would thus like to propose the recommendations A to D as on page 361 and 362 of the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wessels. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Toto. You have 1 minute.
Speaker.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. Speaker, as the ANC, we support the approval as we form part of the MECO, and we are saying that what have happened on this oversight is really what has been discussed in the impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Hector. You have 1 minute. Councillor Hector. No reply. I'm going to move on. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor J. Du Toit. You have 2 minutes, Councillor.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, as Chair of Impact, I just put my name on there if there was any questions to be answered. So I'm 100% in line with this recommendations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fichland, are you able to unmute yourself now? I see you are still in the meeting. If not, I need a seconder. Councillor Viljoen, is there someone that will second it?
Thank you very much, Speaker. I will second the recommendation to accept the report as made by my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It seems that we're all in favour. We're going to be moving on to item 4.4, the tabling of the 2020-2021 annual report by the Mayor, who will bring this item in. Alderman van Wyk, you may go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, the annual report has now gone through the processes as required by the various acts. In other words, the draft annual report needs to be delivered to Council by the end of January, and then by the end of March, the Council needs to approve and adopt the annual report for the 2021 year. This period of time has obviously given Impact the opportunity to interrogate the annual report and to make the necessary suggestions and comments as required by the work and the obligations that the Impact Committee has. It also gives the opportunity for any public comment to be given on the annual report, and therefore in tabling this final version of the annual report now, we will then accordingly be moving for the approval of the annual report. So accordingly, I'm tabling this finalised annual report for adoption by council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Wessels. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you very much, Speaker. Yes, at the council meeting on the 31st of January 2022, the Executive Mayor tabled the draft annual report for the 2021 financial year. As prescribed by legislation. In order to consider and evaluate the 2021 annual report has been finalised by IMPAC, and the oversight report was tabled earlier now to Council. It's in the light thereof that Council is required to consider the attached 2021 annual report for adoption. And I would then like to just recommend that the Council have fully considered the George Municipality 2021 annual report and resolve that A, the 2021 annual report attaches Annexure A be approved and adopted without reservations. B, that the annual report along with the oversight report on the 2021 annual report be advertised in local media within 7 days in accordance with section 129(3) of the Local Government Municipal Finance Management Act number 56 of 2003, and that C, that the annual report along with the oversight report on the 2021 annual report be submitted to the National Treasury, the Western Cape Department of Local Government, the Western Cape Provincial Treasury, the Auditor General, and the provincial legislature within 10 days in accordance with section 132/2 of the Local Government MFMA Act number 56 of 2003. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Toto. You have 1 minute. Councillor Toto, is there nobody going to talk? Can we move on then, please? Am I still in the meeting, or is there something that's gone suddenly quiet?
I can hear you, Speaker.
Can hear you, Speaker.
Can hear you, Speaker.
Okay, Councillor Toto, I presume that you do not want to talk or you cannot speak. Can I move on then, please? The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Hector. Councillor Hector hasn't answered yet again. Councillor Camila, you may go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, Speaker. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Speaker. I just want to make a point that, okay, we as the EFF recognize the annual report. It is very sad of us to be part and parcel of the adoption and approval of this report, because we cannot be involved in such a thing. On your report on Annexure A, it says the establishment of a electorate, of which under proportion of household with access to basic service. Your 2019 and 2020, you stated that 100%, even in 2020 and 2021, you said 100% electricity service connection, of which it is very sad to say such things on your report. While we know in our communities, I will put it like this: here in Mbale, we have informal settlement who've been here for more than 6 years. They are not even electrified, and then they are not even mentioned on your report. And then yet you come with 100% electricity service connections.
Councillor, your time is up.
It forms part of inequality and unfair treatment. Because on the other side of the...
Councillor, your time is up. I'm going to have to mute
there
you.
is no informal settlement that is not electrified.
Councillor, your time was up. You had 1 minute. I gave you 30 seconds above that. I'm sorry. I'm going to move on. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Du Toit. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, the ACDP support the recommendation, and therefore, as Impact Chair, I want to second this recommendation. Thank you.
The item is therefore seconded. We can move straight on to the next item, 4.5, the implementation of the new municipal staff regulations. And to bring this item in, we have Alderman van Wyk. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, this item has been brought to Council to inform Council of the municipal staff regulations, which are due to come into effect on 1 July 2022, and then for Council to take cognizance of the rollout of the plan to ensure that the regulations are being implemented. Now, these new regulations relate to staff establishment and recruitment and selection, performance management, skills development, and a whole set of policies will then need to be reviewed and or compiled, and so that the whole process can take place. So I'm aware of the fact that...
Alderman, sorry, just 1 second. There's a hand up. I apologize for interrupting you. Councillor Camille, do you have a point of order?
Thank you, Speaker. Yes, I have a problem with this thing of time, because not
unfortunately, Councillor, you have to quote the rule of order, and the rules of order do specifically say you have allocated time. I'm therefore not going to allow your point of order. Please put your hand down, and I'm going to allow Councillor Alderman van Wyk to continue, please. Alderman, sorry, I apologize for the break.
Yeah, it seems it's very disruptive when these type of things take place, Speaker, and it appears that we need to councillors also just need to understand that we're busy with the work of the day. The implementation of these new regulations have started through the various consultation that has been taking place between the directors and trying to determine all the work that needs to be done in the months leading up to July. So this is really just an advance notification on the process that needs to be followed. So accordingly, I recommend that Council takes note of the report as well as the regulations and guidelines that are set out in Annexure A and B to the agenda, and that also that Council also takes note of the implementation plan set out in Annexure C. So I accordingly recommend. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Alderman. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor E. Mdaka. You have 1 minute, Councillor.
Good morning, Speaker. Good morning, everyone. Where the ANC supports the implementation of the staff regulation. Our view is that this will make our municipality very effective in its operation, and that only if this process will be transparent. And in the cases where there is staff development, then it must not be done for favorites. We also believe that this will lead to better service delivery by good performing and competent staff of the municipality. The reviews of the current staff is very vital because we need staff who will give the best service, even to the disadvantaged Thembalethu, because the current staff that is in the municipality doesn't recognize the cries of Thembalethu people, more especially with the problems in the houses, problems in the informal settlements. Where those staff only caters for that
30
side.
seconds, Councillor.
So we need that this will be very effective, and that it must be transparent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor J.E. You have 1 minute. Councillor J.E. The next person to speak, I'm going to move on. I've given two calls for the councillor. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Nkampi. You have 1 minute, Councillor.
Thank you, Speaker. We as the EFF see ICASA as recommendations, and also siza ngaphambili sicela into yoba during implementation sicela into yoba kusebenziswe as guidelines nezi-regulation ngendlela erayithi. Xa kuqashwa abantu makuqashwe abantu aba-capable of doing umsebenzi, not because of umntu yena ebona uba angaqashwa because of i-friend ka-MM okanye i-friend yantoni. And also sicela nakwi-communication, can we use the bottom up most of the time, because thina abantu basegroundini we are the ones who are able to identify the areas that need the certain services and certain problems, because i-top up communication most of the time abantu baseofisini abazazi ingxaki zalapha ekuhlaleni because bahlala eziofisini zabo. So I think it's high time that we mostly focus on bottom up communication so that ekugqibela i-service delivery izokwenzeka thoroughly, izokwenzeka indlela right, izoba fair to everyone in George communities. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. The last person to speak on this item is Councillor Fichland. Councillor Fichland, are you able to unmute yet?
Speaker, sorry, can we have a translation, please?
My apologies. I so apologize. Mr. Paulus, could you please translate?
Thank you, Speaker. Basically, what Councillor said, that we support the recommendation as it is, but can the requirements be followed, and that people who are capable of doing the job, can these people, can they be hired? And the Councillor also referred about the matter of top communication, top up communication, that people who are in this who sits in these offices, they don't understand what is happening actually in our communities, and so they do not know actually what our people are going through. And the councillor was mixing here and there, but basically they support the recommendation, but the requirements should be followed, and that not people who are friends with top management should be hired, but make sure that you hire people who have skills and the correct requirements to do the jobs.
Thank you very much. Having said that, Councillor Fichland, are you able to unmute, or can I ask somebody else to second the motion, please, or the item?
Mr. Speaker, can I second the motion as put forward by the Mayor? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The motion is seconded. We therefore move on. The alleged breach of code of conduct, item 4.6. I'm going to ask Councillor Toto to recuse himself, please, if I may. Councillor Toto, is he still in the meeting?
Speaker?
Yes.
Yes, I hear you calling my name, Speaker.
Yes, Councillor Toto, can I ask you to please recuse yourself from the meeting? The next item is the alleged breach of code of conduct for councillors. And I'd ask you to please remove yourself, and I'll let you know when you can come back in again, please. Thank you very much. He has left. The first person to speak on this item is Councillor Johnson. You have 3 minutes. Please continue.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm not going to be long on this.
on this item, and I therefore wish to go straight to the recommendation on page 1724 of today's agenda. And I shall propose that A, Council take note of the report of the special committee appointed by Council, as well as its finding that Councillor Toto did not make himself guilty of the breach of Code of Conduct for Councillors, and that B, Council furthermore takes note of the recommendation of the special committee that the allegations against Councillor Toto be dismissed. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. The next person to speak on this item, you have 1 minute, is Councillor Ntondini. You have 1 minute.
Good morning, Speaker. The DA and its partners, such as FFF Plus and ACDP, must apologize to Councillor Toto by dragging his name to the council and embarrassing him to the public as if he is unethical to his position as a ward councillor. I believe Councillor Toto has settled his account before he was summoned by the DA and FF Plus disciplinary committee. Please, Speaker, explain who's drafting the agenda for the council, because before I received the agenda, there were already rumors in the public domain that the DA will remove 2 opposition councillors, and was flabbergasted and surprised about that. If the DA is tired with the marriage with the FF Plus and ACDP, you have a choice to divorce and be opposition, to stop seeking a shortcut of wanting to silence the opposition councillors. Prisoners, we support the recommendations of dismissing the allegations by Councillor Toto. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The next person to speak on this item is Councillor Suffers. Councillor Suffers, you have 1 minute.
Speaker, I second the proposal by my colleague.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the open agenda, if I'm not mistaken. If somebody could just correct me on that, please. I believe it is.
No, Speaker, we still have 4.7.
4. Okay, I didn't have a speaker's list on that one. Sorry. My apologies. I just want to get back to that in 1 second. 4.7 is the nomination of a municipal council representative to serve on the Salga provincial chapter of the Women's Commission. I do not have that on the speakers list. I presume the mayor will bring that in. Alderman, can you continue?
Yes, I'll just continue. I think that is short and simple. We've resolved to the nominee should be after some consultation. So therefore, we are nominating Councillor Charlotte Clark and Councillor Noni Mbete as the secundi. Councillor Clark as the member, and then Councillor Mbete as the secundi to the Salga provincial chapter of the Women's Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman. That's noted. Could we have that as noted? As there's no speakers list. Are we all in favour? We're going to move on then.
So noted.
Thank you very much. That now brings us to the end of the open session of this.